My best friend's boyfriend cornered me the night before he planned to propose to her, looked me dead in the eyes, and said he was in love with me. No, that's not quite right. What he actually said was worse. I think I'm in love with whoever's been writing those texts, he whispered, voice cracking. And I'm terrified. Terrified it might be you. We were sitting on the concrete steps outside the campus library, and I remember the way the October air bit at my cheeks, the way his hands were shaking, the way my whole chest felt like it was caving in and expanding at the same time. I'd spent 7 months waiting for someone to figure it out. I just never thought it would be him. And I definitely never thought he'd be holding an engagement ring in his pocket when he did. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you want to understand how I ended up destroying my best friend's relationship, falling for her boyfriend, and somehow becoming the villain in a love story I ghost wrote myself, I need to take you back to the beginning. Back to one stupid text message that was never supposed to mean anything. It started in February 2nd semester of junior year, in a psychology lecture hall that smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. Kelsey had been my best friend since freshman orientation, when we'd both shown up to the wrong dorm building and spent 45 minutes crying in a stairwell together before realizing neither of us actually lived there. She was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday, who made you soup when you were sick, who would literally give you the jacket off her back if you shivered once. She was also, without exaggeration, the most socially anxious human being I'd ever met. Not in an obvious way. Kelsey could talk to people. She could smile and laugh and function like a normal 21-year-old. But the second she had to text someone she was interested in, complete nuclear meltdown. Lauren. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been half-heartedly taking notes on cognitive dissonance. Kelsey was gripping my arm like I was the only thing keeping her from floating into space. What? Don't look. Okay, look. No, don't. Okay, look. I followed her gaze 3 rows down to where a guy was settling into his seat, shrugging off a gray hoodie, brown hair that curled a little at the ends, nice shoulders, profile that looked like it belonged in one of those moody black and white cologne ads. That's Nolan, Kelsey whispered, like she was revealing state secrets. He's in my statistics study group. He talked to me after class yesterday. Like, talk, asked me what I was doing this weekend. Okay, and I panicked and said I had to reorganize my sock drawer. I blinked at her. Your sock drawer. I know. Professor Martinez started talking about confirmation bias, but Kelsey wasn't listening. She was staring at the back of Nolan's head like it contained the secrets of the universe. I didn't know it yet, but that moment, that stupid, innocuous moment of my best friend having a crush, was the first domino, and I was about to knock the whole thing over. After class, Kelsey shoved her phone at me before I could even zip up my backpack. He texted me. He actually texted me 3 hours ago. I've been staring at it all day and I can't respond. Lauren, I physically cannot make my fingers type words. I looked at the screen. Nolan, hey, it was cool talking to you yesterday. Sock drawer situation under control? Okay, cute. He had a sense of humor about her awkward deflection. That was a good sign. Just say something like, haha, yeah, the socks are all organized now. What did you end up doing this weekend? Kelsey's face went pale. That's so boring. What if he thinks I'm boring? What if he never texts me again? What if, Kelsey, I put my hands on her shoulders. Breathe. It's one text. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. But what if, here, I grabbed her phone out of her hands. I'll type it, you can approve it, and then you send it. Okay? Just this once. Training wheels. She nodded frantically. Yes, okay, yes, just this once. I typed out a response, something casual and light, added a little joke about sock organization being an underrated life skill. Kelsey read it, looked at me like I'd just solved world hunger, and hit send. 20 minutes later, Nolan responded, and Kelsey immediately shoved her phone back at me. What do I say? Lauren, what do I say? Just this once turned into twice. Twice turned into a week. But here's the thing people don't know about Kelsey. She wasn't helpless. Not really. About 5 days into our little arrangement, she grabbed her phone back from me mid-conversation. No, wait. I want to try this one myself. I watched her type, delete, type again, chew her lip, delete again. Finally, she showed me the screen. Kelsey's draft. That song you mentioned is actually really good. I listened to it like 4 times already, lol. What else do you like? It wasn't perfect. A little eager, maybe. The lol felt slightly forced. But it was her. Genuine and sweet and trying. Send it, I said. She looked at me like I'd suggested she jump off a cliff. Really? It's not too much. It's good, Kels, it's you. She hit send, and we both stared at the screen for 3 agonizing minutes until his reply came through. Nolan, okay, I love that you actually listened. Most people just say, oh, cool, and forget. I'll make you a playlist if you want. Kelsey's face lit up. He liked it. He actually liked it. See, you can do this. But the next day, when it came time to respond to the playlist he'd sent, she was back at my door, phone in hand, panic in her eyes. I don't know what to say about the songs. What if I say the wrong thing and he thinks I have bad taste? Lauren, please, just this one. And I caved, because she was my best friend and she looked so scared, and I told myself I was helping her. That was the lie I kept telling myself as I took over completely. As a week turned into 3 weeks. As I drafted every single message Kelsey sent to Nolan while they texted constantly, while their conversations got longer and deeper and more personal. And here's the thing nobody tells you about ghostwriting. Someone else's love story. At some point, you stop being the author and start becoming a character. The first time I caught myself actually thinking about what to say next. Not for Kelsey's sake, but because I genuinely wanted to know what Nolan would say back. I should have stopped. That was the red flag. That was the moment I should have handed the phone back to my best friend and said, figure it out yourself. But I didn't, because his responses were so good. Nolan didn't text like most guys I knew. He didn't send one-word answers or take 14 hours to respond, or make everything about himself. He asked questions. He remembered details. When Kelsey mentioned being stressed about a history exam, he sent her a Spotify playlist of songs that helped him focus. When she said she was having a bad day, he asked what would make it better and actually listened to the answer. And the late night conversations? God, those were dangerous. One night around 2 a.m., I was lying in bed with Kelsey's phone, drafting a message about anxiety. Nolan had asked Kelsey what it felt like for her. The social anxiety, the fear of saying the wrong thing. And I knew I should keep it vague, keep it surface level, keep it her. But my own anxiety was clawing at my chest that night, and before I could stop myself, I typed something real, something true. Something that came from the deepest, most vulnerable part of me. Kelsey, it's like having 12 browser tabs open in your brain, and you can never find the right one to click. Everyone else seems to just instinctively know which tab they need, but I'm sitting there frozen, cursor hovering, terrified I'm going to close the wrong one and lose something important forever. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before sending it. It was too much. It was too honest. It was going to weird weird him out. 3 minutes later, my phone, Kelsey's phone, buzzed. Nolan. That's the most accurate description of anxiety I've ever heard. I think you just put into words something I've been trying to explain my whole life. Can I screenshot this? Seriously. I don't know how to explain what that felt like. Like being seen, like being understood. Like someone had finally found the right browser tab and clicked it. That was the night I realized I was in trouble. 3 weeks after that first text, Nolan asked Kelsey to get coffee. I coached her through the whole thing. What to wear, what to say, how to breathe through the panic. I told her she'd be fine once they were face to face. That real conversation was different from texting, that she just needed to relax and be herself. But what if myself isn't good enough? She asked, and there was real fear in her eyes. Then he's an idiot, I said, and you deserve better. She went on the date. She came back glowing. Lauren, he's so nice and funny. And he kept saying how much he loved talking to me, how I was different from other girls he'd dated, how I actually seemed to get him. She grabbed my hands, bouncing on her heels. I think I really like him. Something twisted in my stomach. I ignored it. That's amazing, Kels. I'm so happy for you. Over the next few weeks, Kelsey and Nolan went on more dates. Coffee turned into dinner, turned into study sessions, turned into them being officially, publicly, adorably together. They held hands walking across campus. They kissed goodbye after class. They posted Instagram stories of each other with heart emojis. And I kept writing the texts. I told myself it was fine, that I was just helping her through the adjustment period, that eventually she'd get comfortable enough to take over, and I'd fade into the background where I belonged. But every time I suggested that maybe she should start handling the messages herself, Kelsey would panic. Not yet, please, I'll mess it up. You know I'll mess it up. So I stayed. I kept writing. I wrote the apology after their first fight, when Kelsey accidentally stood him up because she'd gotten her days mixed up. I wrote the sweet good morning messages that made him smile in class. I wrote the vulnerable 2 a.m. confessions about fears and dreams and all the things you're supposed to share with someone when you're falling in love. The problem was I was falling in love, just not the way anyone expected. Every time Nolan sent a response, my heart would do this stupid little flip. Every time he called Kelsey beautiful or said she understood him better than anyone, I felt it like a confession meant for me, because in a way he was falling for my words, my thoughts, my heart dressed up in someone else's name. If I had told Kelsey the truth right then, that the lines were blurring, that I was catching feelings for her boyfriend through a screen, that I needed to stop before this got worse, everything would have been different. She would have been hurt, sure, confused definitely, but we could have figured it out. Instead, I convinced myself I had it under control. I was wrong. By April, our whole friend group had merged. Kelsey and Nolan became a unit, and their relationship became the center of gravity, around which everyone else orbited. There was Jenna, who I'd known since sophomore year and who could drink anyone under the table at trivia night. Paige, who was pre-med and stressed about everything but somehow still showed up to every group hangout. Miles, Nolan's roommate, who was loud and chaotic and made everyone laugh, even when nothing was actually funny. And then there was me, the best friend, the third wheel, the ghost in Kelsey's phone who nobody knew existed. We started doing movie nights every Friday at Nolan and Miles's apartment. We'd cram onto their beat-up couch, fight over what to watch, throw popcorn at whoever made too many comments during the movie. Normal stuff, friend stuff, but I started noticing things. Small things at first. The way Nolan would quote something from their texts and instinctively glance at me instead of Kelsey. The way his laugh seemed louder when I made a joke versus when she did. The way he'd finish my sentences sometimes, like we'd been having conversations for months, which technically we had. One night we were all watching some terrible action movie Miles had insisted on, and Paige made a sarcastic comment about the dialogue being written by an AI. At least it's not as bad as that thing you sent me last week, Nolan said to Kelsey, grinning. The one about the stars? That was legitimately poetry. Kelsey laughed, nodding. Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but Nolan's eyes drifted to me. Just for a second. Just a flicker. I'd written that message at 3 a.m., lying on my bedroom floor, staring at my ceiling and thinking about how unfair it was to love someone you couldn't have. I'd compared the feeling to watching stars, how they look close enough to touch, but they're actually millions of miles away, burning out even as you're wishing on them. It was too real, to me. And somehow Nolan had felt that. After everyone else went home that night, Kelsey pulled me aside in the hallway. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. She bit her lip, a nervous habit I knew too well. Is it just me, or does Nolan seem distant lately? Like in person, when it's just us. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I don't know. We text all the time and it's perfect, you know? But when we're actually together, sometimes it feels like... She trailed off, shaking her head. Never mind. It's probably nothing. Kels, it's fine. She forced a smile. I'm probably just overthinking. You know how I get. She walked toward the elevator, and I stood there in that fluorescent lit hallway, knowing exactly why Nolan seemed different in person. It was because the girl he was texting wasn't the same girl he was dating, and I was both of them. 2 weeks later, Nolan asked if I wanted to grab lunch. Just the two of us, as friends. Because apparently that was a thing we did now. I said yes, because I was an idiot who couldn't stop herself from sprinting toward her own destruction. We went to this little sandwich shop off campus, the kind of place with chalkboard menus and exposed brick and way too many succulents. Nolan got a coffee. He didn't drink and spent most of the meal fidgeting with the paper wrapper from his straw. Can I tell you something weird? He asked. Sure. He didn't look at me. Sometimes I feel like I'm dating two different people. My whole body went cold. What? Like, he ran a hand through his hair and something defensive flickered across his face. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being picky. Maybe I expect too much. It's probably my fault. What do you mean? Forget it. He shook his head, jaw tightening. I shouldn't be complaining about my girlfriend to her best friend. That's messed up. Nolan, it's fine, seriously. But he didn't look fine. He looked like someone trying to convince himself of something he didn't believe. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then he exhaled slowly, and when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. When I'm texting Kelsey, she's incredible. Witty and thoughtful and deep, you know? She says these things that stick with me for days. But when we're actually together, she's different, quieter, more surface level. He finally met my eyes. And I feel guilty even saying that because she's great, Lauren. She really is. But sometimes I wonder which version is real. I should have told him the truth right there. Should have confessed everything, blown up my own life, faced the consequences. That was the moment. That was my chance. Instead, I said, everyone's different over text. It's not that deep. Nolan nodded slowly. Yeah, you're probably right. But when he looked at me, there was something in his eyes that told me he didn't believe it any more than I did. The next few months were a masterclass in self-destruction. I kept writing the texts. Kelsey kept sending them. Nolan kept falling more in in love with the voice on the other end of his phone, while something quiet and confused grew between us in person. We never did anything wrong, not technically. No secret kisses, no confessions, no crossing physical lines. But the emotional ones? Those were so blurred I couldn't even see them anymore. There was the time he drove me home from a party because I'd had too much to drink, and we sat in his car for an hour just talking. About nothing. About everything. About how hard it was to know who you really were in a world that wanted you to be 100 different versions of yourself. There was the study session where everyone else bailed and we ended up debating philosophy until 2 a.m. And he told me I was the smartest person he'd ever met. There was the group trip to the beach, where he found me sitting alone on the sand at sunset and sat down beside me without saying anything, just sat there. Like that was enough. Every moment was innocent. Every moment felt like a betrayal. And Kelsey, beautiful, kind, oblivious Kelsey, kept asking me to write more. He's been stressed about his internship applications, she'd say. Can you send something supportive? He mentioned his parents' anniversary. Should we do something? I feel like we haven't had a really deep conversation lately. Help me fix it? And every single time I helped her. Because that's what best friends do, right? They help. Even when helping means slowly setting yourself on fire. By September, Kelsey was convinced Nolan was going to propose. Look at this, she said, shoving her phone at me. He asked what my ring size is. Said it was for a Christmas thing, but it's obviously not. It's only October, Lauren. He's planning something. I looked at the text. I'd been there when she'd received it, had watched her face light up from across the room. I'd smiled and said all the right things. Inside, I'd felt like I was dying. And I've been looking at Pinterest boards. Kelsey continued, bouncing on her heels. Do you think he'd do something public or private? He seems like a private person, right? Intimate? Oh my god, what if he does it on our anniversary? That's in December. That would be perfect. She showed me the Pinterest board. Fairy lights and candles and romantic picnic setups. You'll help me, right? She asked. If he needs like speech ideas or anything? You're so good with words. I want it to be perfect. Of course, I heard myself say. Whatever you need. That night, I lay in bed and cried for 3 hours straight. Not because Kelsey was happy. I wanted her to be happy. I really did. She was my best friend. She deserved the world. I cried because I'd built something beautiful that didn't belong to me. And now I had to watch someone else live in it. The text came 2 days later. Nolan. Hey, can we meet up? I need advice about something. Kelsey related. Wanted to talk to you first. I stared at my phone so long the screen went dark. This was it. He was going to ask me to help plan the proposal. He was going to ask me to write the speech, the moment, the words that would make Kelsey his forever. And I was going to do it. Because I was a coward and a liar, and I didn't know how to be anything else anymore. Lauren, sure. When? Nolan. Tonight? Library steps, 8 p.m. Lauren, I'll be there. I spent the rest of the day trying not to throw up. The library steps at night were one of those campus spots that looked like it belonged in a movie. Old stone, warm lights from the building behind us, the distant sound of people laughing somewhere across the quad. Nolan was already there when I arrived, sitting with his elbows on his knees, staring at the ground. Hey, I sat down next to him, leaving a careful foot of space between us. What's up? He didn't answer right away, just kept staring at the ground, jaw tight. I need to ask you something, he finally said, and I need you to be honest with me, completely honest, even if it's bad. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. Okay. He turned to look at me then, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Desperation, fear, hope. Have you been writing Kelsey's texts? The world stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except sit there, frozen, while 7 months of lies came crashing down around me. What? I managed. I'm not. He stopped, ran both hands through his hair, and for a second his voice hardened. You know what? Maybe this is stupid. Maybe I'm just looking for an excuse because I can't figure out my own feelings. Maybe I'm the problem. Nolan! No, seriously. What kind of guy sits here questioning his girlfriend? Because she's different over text? He laughed bitterly. That's insane. That's me being crazy. You're not crazy. Then what is it? He turned to face me fully, and I watched him fight through his own defensiveness. Watched him force himself to stay open. Because I've been going crazy trying to figure out why. I feel like I'm in love with 2 different people, and I need to know if there's an actual reason or if I'm just broken. You're not broken, I whispered. Then tell me the truth. His voice cracked. Please. And there it was. The question I'd been running from for 7 months, finally catching up to me. I could lie. I could deny it, play dumb, tell him he was being paranoid, protect Kelsey, protect myself, keep the whole fragile house of cards standing just a little bit longer. But looking at him, at this confused, hurting boy who'd been loving the wrong girl without knowing it, I couldn't. Yes, the word came out barely above a whisper. I've been writing them, most of them, almost all of them, since the very beginning. Nolan didn't react, didn't move, just stared at me. She was so scared to text you, I continued, the words tumbling out now like a dam breaking. She liked you so much and she was terrified she'd mess it up. So she asked me to help, just once, just the first text. But then she kept asking, and you kept responding and I kept writing, and somewhere along the way I forgot I was supposed to be pretending. I felt tears on my cheeks, didn't remember starting to cry. The browser tabs thing was real. That was me, not her. The stuff about stars, about feeling like you're watching something beautiful from too far away, that was me too. Most of the late night conversations, most of the vulnerable stuff, most of the things that made you feel understood. My voice broke. That was me, Nolan. I'm so sorry. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I'm supposed to propose to her next week. I bought a ring. I had a whole plan. I know. But every time I think about spending my life with her, something feels wrong. Like there's a piece missing. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out the piece was you. Don't. I shook my head. Don't say that. Kelsey loves you. She really genuinely loves you. I know she does. And I love her too. Just, he swallowed hard. Not the way I should. Not the way I love whoever's been on the other end of those messages. He turned to face me fully, and my breath caught at the rawness in his expression. I think I'm in love with you, Lauren. I think I have been for months without knowing it. And I'm terrified because you're my girlfriend's best friend. And I'm supposed to propose to her in a week. And I don't know what to do. I should have said something comforting, something wise, something that would make this all okay. Instead, I said, I think I'm in love with you too. The words hung in the air between us, dangerous and undeniable. So what do we do? He asked. I don't know. I wiped at my eyes. I can't be the reason you don't propose to her. I can't be that person. She's my best friend. And I can't propose to someone while I'm in love with someone else. That's not fair to her either. We sat there, 2 people trapped by their own terrible choices, watching our breath fog in the October air. I have to tell her, I finally said. She deserves to know the truth about all of it. Nolan nodded slowly, and I have to figure out what I actually want, who I actually want, before I make any decisions. What about the proposal? It's not happening. Not tomorrow. Not until I figure this out. He looked at me, something fragile in his eyes. But Lauren, I meant what I said. And if you feel the same way, I need to talk to Kelsey first, before anything else. I stood up, legs shaky. She needs to hear it from me. He didn't try to stop me, just sat there on those stone steps, looking lost and broken and somehow still beautiful. Lauren, he called out when I was a few feet away. I turned back. Whatever happens next, I'm glad it was you. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded and walked away, and tried not to think about how everything I loved was about to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, rereading every text I'd ever written as Kelsey. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. A whole relationship built on my words, my thoughts, my heart. Some of them were stupid. Inside jokes about their statistics class, playful arguments about the best kind of pizza, but others, God, some of them were so painfully honest that reading them back felt like peeling off my own skin. The one about browser tabs, the one about stars, the one at 4 a.m. when Kelsey had told Nolan about being scared of never being enough for anyone, of always being the girl who tried too hard and still came up short. That wasn't Kelsey's fear, that was mine. I'd poured my own insecurities into those messages, used my best friend's name as a mask to say things I could never say out loud, and Nolan had fallen in love with those things, with me hiding behind someone else's face. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know how to do it. I texted Kelsey at 9 a.m. Lauren, can we talk? In person, it's important. Kelsey, sure. Everything okay? Wanna grab coffee? Lauren, can you come to my apartment instead? There was a long pause before she responded. Kelsey, yeah, give me 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt like 20 years. When she knocked on my door, she looked worried. I let her in, sat her down on my couch, and watched her face shift through confusion, concern, fear. Lauren, you're freaking me out. What's going on? I'd rehearsed the speech 100 times in my head. I had bullet points, explanations, careful justifications. None of them seemed to matter now. I did something terrible, I said, and I should have told you months ago. But I was scared and selfish and stupid, and I'm so sorry. What are you talking about? I took a deep breath. The texts. Nolan's texts. I've been writing them. All of them. Since the very first one. Kelsey's face went blank. What? You asked me to help you that first day, remember? You were panicking about how to respond. And I said I'd type something, just training wheels. But then you kept asking, and I kept writing, and it never stopped. I forced myself to meet her eyes. Every flirty message. Every deep conversation. Every late night confession. That was me, Kelsey. I'm the one he's been talking to. The silence that followed was the worst sound I'd ever heard. No, she finally said. No, that's not. I'm so sorry. You're lying. She stood up, backing away from me. You have to be lying. Those were my conversations. My relationship. He fell in love with me. He fell in love with my words. With the version of you I created. Stop it. Her voice cracked. Stop saying that. Kelsey, did you? She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Did you plan this? Did you want to steal him from the beginning? No, God, no. I was trying to help you. I swear to God, I never meant for any of this to happen. Then how did it happen, Lauren? How did my best friend end up writing love letters to my boyfriend for 7 months and never once think to tell me? I didn't have an answer. There was no answer that would make this okay. I fell for him, I whispered. Through the messages. I didn't mean to. I tried to stop, but I couldn't. And I should have told you. I should have told you so many times. Do you love him? The question hit me like a physical blow. Yes. Kelsey let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Kelsey, I'm so sorry. Does he know? Does he know it was you? He figured it out. Last night. He asked me to meet him and I couldn't finish. He what? He said he has feelings for me. The look on her face in that moment. I'll never forget it as long as I live. Hurt, betrayal, humiliation, all of it colliding at once. Like I'd taken the most precious thing in her life and shattered it on the floor. And in that moment, I remembered us freshman year. 2 lost girls crying in a stairwell, bonding over being disasters together. I remembered her showing up at my dorm with soup when I had the flu. Remembered us laughing until we cried over absolutely nothing at 3 a.m. Remembered every single moment that had made her my person. Now she was looking at me like I was a stranger. Worse, like I was an enemy. Get out. Kelsey, get out. She was screaming now, pointing at the door. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. I didn't argue. Didn't try to explain. Just grabbed my bag and walked out, leaving my best friend crying on the couch, in the apartment where we'd built 3 years of memories. The next week was the longest of my life. Kelsey blocked me on everything. My texts went unanswered. My calls went to voicemail. I saw her once across the quad, and she turned and walked the other way before I could even open my mouth. 3 days into that endless week, I hit bottom. It was Friday night, and my body moved on autopilot. Before I knew what I was doing, I was standing outside Nolan and Miles's apartment, the place where we'd had all those movie nights, where I'd felt like I belonged to something. I could hear them through the door. Laughter. Someone yelling about a movie choice. Jenna's voice loud and cheerful. Paige saying something sarcastic. Normal. Like nothing had changed. I stood there in that dim hallway, my hand frozen halfway to the door, and listened to the life I'd blown up continuing without me. The carpet smelled like stale beer and cleaning solution. The fluorescent light above me flickered and buzzed. I heard Miles say something, and then Kelsey laughed. Kelsey was in there. She was in there with my friends, at our movie night, and I was standing in the hallway like a ghost. My chest felt like someone had reached in and squeezed. I backed away from the door slowly, quietly, and then I was running, down the stairs out of the building, into the cold night air where I could finally breathe. I sat on a bench across the street and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. People walked past. A couple holding hands. A group of girls laughing about something. Everyone had somewhere to be, someone to be with. I had a bench and a ruined life and no one to blame but myself. From what I heard through Jenna over the following days, she was trying desperately to stay neutral. Kelsey had confronted Nolan the day after our conversation. She told him she knew everything, that it was over. He hadn't fought it. According to Jenna, he'd sat there for a moment, looking like he wanted to defend himself, to explain. I didn't know, he'd started to say. I didn't plan for this to happen. I was just, but then he'd stopped, caught himself, and instead of making excuses, he'd just nodded, told her he was sorry, that she deserved better, that he'd never meant to hurt her, and then he'd let her go. The proposal never happened. The ring went back to wherever it came from. The Pinterest board with the fairy lights. And the candles became a monument to something that was never going to exist. For weeks, I lived in a fog of guilt and grief. I went to class, went through the motions, but nothing felt real. The friend group fractured structured. Miles and Jenna still talk to me, but everything was awkward now, heavy with the weight of what I'd done. I didn't try to contact Nolan, didn't try to reach out to Kelsey, just existed in the wreckage of my own making, waiting for something to tell me what came next. About a month later, I ran into Kelsey at the campus Starbucks. I saw her first, standing in line, and every instinct told me to turn around and leave. But she looked up before I could move, and our eyes met, and for a long moment, we just stood there. She looked tired, thinner than before, like she'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. Lauren, her voice was flat. Hey, silence. The line moved. She didn't look away. I've been thinking, she finally said, about what you did. About why. I waited. I was so angry at first. So humiliated. Like everything I thought was real was actually just a performance. Kelsey, let me finish. She took a breath. But then I kept thinking about all those times I shoved my phone at you, begging you to help. All those times I told you I couldn't do it myself. I never even tried after that first time, Lauren. I just assumed I'd fail and made you fix it. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't. She met my eyes. But maybe I understand it a little better now. It wasn't forgiveness. Not really. But it was something. I'm not ready to be your friend again, she said. I don't know if I ever will be. But I'm working on not hating you. That's more than I deserve. She almost smiled. Almost. Maybe. She grabbed her coffee from the counter. I'll see you around, Lauren. And then she left, and I stood there in the middle of Starbucks, crying into my vanilla latte, feeling something that might have been the first edge of hope. I eventually saw Nolan again. We'd both been avoiding each other, I think. Giving Kelsey space. Giving ourselves space. Trying to figure out who we were in the aftermath of everything. But then one night, I walked into my favorite coffee shop, the same one where we'd had lunch all those months ago. And there he was, sitting alone at a corner table, staring at his phone. He looked up when I walked in. Our eyes met. For a second, I thought about leaving. Thought about pretending I hadn't seen him, backing out the door, keeping the careful distance we'd both maintained. Instead, I walked over. Is this seat taken? He looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. No, he said quietly. It's not. I sat down. We didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, two people who'd built something complicated and painful and real, trying to figure out where to go from here. I talked to Kelsey, he finally said. About a week after everything. She told me she needed time, that she didn't hate me, but she couldn't look at me either. She said something similar to me. She's strong. Stronger than either of us gave her credit for. Yeah, I looked down at my hands. She is. Silence again, then. I've been thinking a lot. About us, about what we had. If we even had anything, or if it was all just... He trailed off. You had real conversations, I said. Real feelings. Even if they were with the wrong person, they were still real. Were they with the wrong person, though? He looked at me, really looked, and I felt that familiar flutter in my chest. Because the things I felt, the way I connected to whoever was on the other end of those messages, that hasn't gone away. And now I know it was you. Nolan, I know we can't just pick up where we left off. I know there's too much damage, too much hurt, but I keep wondering, he leaned forward, voice dropping. What if we started over? Not as Kelsey's boyfriend and Kelsey's best friend. Not as the guy who almost proposed and the girl who ghost wrote his relationship. Just us, getting to know each other for real, without any screens between us. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I hurt my best friend, I said. I destroyed something that mattered to her. I don't know if I get to be happy after that. Maybe not. He reached across the table, hesitated, then gently took my hand. But maybe you don't get to decide that alone. Maybe you just have to try being honest, being real, and see what happens. I looked at his hand in mine. At this boy who'd fallen in love with my words before he ever knew they were mine. At the future that seemed terrifying and beautiful and completely uncertain. Okay, I said. Let's start over. He smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. Hi, I'm Nolan. I like late night conversations and terrible action movies and people who say exactly what they mean. I laughed, feeling something loosen in my chest for the first time in months. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm terrified of browser tabs and I write things I'm too scared to say out loud and I'm probably going to overthink every moment of this. Sounds perfect, he said. Want to grab coffee sometime? I looked at him, this boy I'd loved from a distance, through a screen, in secret and in shame. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a future where the person I was falling for actually knew my name. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. 3 months later, Kelsey texted me. Just a simple message. I still think about our friendship sometimes. Maybe we could get coffee. Just to talk. I cried when I read it. Showed Nolan, who held me while I processed what it meant. We met at a neutral cafe somewhere neither of us had history. It was awkward at first, stilted, both of us dancing around the elephant in the room. But then she asked about my classes. And I asked about her internship. And somehow we started talking like people who used to know each other, who maybe could know each other again someday. I'm not saying we're okay, she said at the end. I don't know if we'll ever be what we were before. I know, but I'm tired of being angry. And I miss... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I miss having a best friend, even if it can't be you right now. Even if this is just a first step towards something different. I'll take a first step. She nodded. We both stood. And then tentatively, she reached out and squeezed my hand. Take care of yourself, Lauren. You too, Kelsey. I walked out of that cafe knowing that I'd lost something precious. Something that might never fully heal. But I'd also found something myself, finally telling the truth. Finally being honest about what I wanted and who I was. Nolan was waiting for me outside just like he'd promised. How'd it go? It went, I said. It's a start. He took my hand, lacing his fingers through mine. And we started walking. No destination, no plan. Just two people choosing each other in the daylight. For the first time, he wasn't in love with words on a screen. He was choosing me, all of me. The messy, complicated, imperfect person I'd been hiding behind someone else's name. And this time I was finally choosing myself too.